Hey guys, it's Marshall back with you again, and we're going to kind of pick up where we left off in the last set of videos about the Legends plugin, Quest plugin version 1.88, and the advanced features that we discussed in that one. In this set of videos, what I want to go through is what the new special effects plugin is all about. Now, the special effects plugin is something that goes hand in hand with quests. That's why it's bundled together with the quest plugin. They do have dependencies upon each other, so you do need to have the quest plugin installed. You don't necessarily have to be using Legends quests to use this plugin. However, it's really the power really comes in when you start using them together. You create quests and start doing things with special effects, and it basically creates enhanced quests. But that said, the special effects can actually be used without quests. You can use them standalone. So the next couple of videos are going to be about how the special effects plugin works, the concepts behind it, and some demonstrations on how we can use it. After we get into the fundamentals of the special effects plugin, we can start looking at other videos that'll be a combination of creating quests and incorporating special effects into them. So as described in those previous videos, we do have a new plugin listed here called the Legends SE plugin. So whenever we talk about the SE plugin, we're talking about special effects. So that's what we're talking about there. And I've got the same module that we had in the last set of videos with that demonstration quest for advanced features. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to continue using the same module. I'm just going to remove these objects here so that we can go ahead and use special effects in this module. So one thing that we do need to have, and this is a requirement for special effects, is we do need to use the Legends Spawn plugin. If you're not using the Legends Spawn plugin, you have to get it installed in order to use the special effects plugin. It is a dependency. There's features of the Spawn plugin that the special effects plugin do depend on. So one thing you'll definitely want to do is get the Spawn plugin installed. So I'm going to actually do that right now. I'm going to actually import the resources for the Legends Spawn plugin right now and get that installed here. Now, of course, the Legends Spawn plugin is an older version than this one, so I'm not going to overwrite any resources. I'm going to select no to any of the resources here, and that's it for that. I'm going to go into the master configurator, turn on the Spawn plugin, finish, and update my module scripts because I've added a new plugin. And I'm going to go into the Legends Spawn plugin and go in configuration and hit finish because I need to have that done. Then I'm just going to compile my scripts, and that's it. The Legends Spawn plugin is now installed. We'll just double check to make sure we don't have anything red here showing up, and looks good. So the Spawn plugin is installed and ready to go. Now we just have to configure the Spawn plugin for this area because we're going to be needing it for this. So what we'll do is we'll just go over to our blueprint waypoints. And if you want to learn more about the Legends Spawn plugin, you just go through the videos for Legends Spawn, go through the documentation of Legends Spawn, and you'll learn a little bit more about that. I'm not going to get into the details of how the Spawn plugin works here. But those videos and documentation will give you some ideas on how this works. So one thing that we do have to do is make sure that our Mr. HB man from our Spawn plugin does have the correct tag, which is the area tag underscore HB man. So we'll just update that, and this area we're just calling the farms, and that's it. Just put that back, and now this area is ready for spawning. So now we're prepared, now we're ready to use the Legends SE plugin. Before we can actually get started, we have to understand how the SE plugin works. The SE plugin is basically, in a nutshell, it is activities or events that occur based on conditions. So when a condition is met, an event occurs. So it's a basically action-reaction kind of thing. The player can cause an event, and then a specified reaction can occur based on that event. So how does that work? Well, the way you can look at it is you can have a set of flags in your area, and the flags are basically numbered 1 to 31. You can have up to 31 of these things per area. And these flags are just basically on-offs. Think of them as checkboxes. They're on-off. If flag number 1 is on, then its checkbox is on. Then you can have a monitoring manager who sits there and kind of watches for these flags, and if it notices a particular flag just got turned on, then it says, okay, flag number 1 just got turned on, what am I supposed to do? And it can actually perform one or more reactions to it. So if flag number 1 is turned on and I'm supposed to create a visual effect at a certain place, then do it. If flag number 1 is turned on and I'm supposed to spawn a monster, do it. So that's what the reaction system does. Now, what's interesting is that you can have multiple combinations of this. You can have, as I mentioned before, if a flag is on, you can have a monster spawn. But you can also set it to say spawn that monster when flags number 1, number 4, and number 7 are turned on. Only spawn the monster. And you can even take it one step further and say spawn that monster when flags number 1, 3, and 5 are on and numbers 2 and 4 are off. So it's basically an on-off type flag system, and then you can perform reactions based on them. So of course the first question is, well, how do I turn these flags on or off? What kind of events can a player do to turn these flags on or off? Well, that's the easy part. There's several ways that you can do it. Some of the things you can do is have a player click on a placeable. You can have a placeable object, player clicks on it, and you can turn on or off a particular flag. You can have a trigger where the player crosses a trigger and one or more flags can be turned on or off based on the player crossing a trigger. And then most importantly, when a player completes an objective in the Legends Quest plugin, you can have a flag get activated that way. So if the player is supposed to kill monster X and the player does so, you can actually have a flag get turned on when that happens, and then a special effects plugin detects that that flag is active and then performs whatever reactions accordingly. So that's basically how it works. Now, that's a lot to wrap your head around at first when you first hear it, but the best way I find is to actually demonstrate how this works. So what we're going to do to demonstrate this is we're going to set up a little special effect. Now, this particular example is not going to incorporate the quests at all. This is just a special effect. And what we want to have happen is we're going to have a trigger here that the players can walk across. And when they walk across it, we're going to have a brazier sitting here that will light up with flames if the player crosses the trigger. So normally it's just sitting there and not doing anything until the player crosses that trigger. Once the player crosses that trigger, we're going to light up that brazier in flames. So the first thing we're going to need is we're going to need that brazier. So let's go and pull over our blueprints, and it's a placeable, and we're just going to go and do a search for a brazier and place it kind of right there. So now we've got this brazier sitting here, and it's not doing anything right now, but we're going to want some flames appear on this if a player walks across a trigger. So one thing we're going to want to do first is just update the tag, because we're going to need to know the tag of this thing, and we'll call it just call it brazier 1. If I spell it right, brazier 1, like that. We're going to make sure that it's not static, and that's it. We'll just leave it like that. So that's our brazier that's sitting there. Now, of course, we want to be able to have our trigger. So remember, we want this thing to light up in flames if the player crosses a trigger. So what we can do is look at our blueprints, and under triggers, if we look at our module under Legends Quest, we'll see a new category here called Special Effects. Under the Special Effects, we'll see what's called a flag trigger. So we can use this trigger, paint it down where the player will walk, and that's our flag trigger right there. Not very square, but that's okay. So we'll just move that over there. So now we'll have this this trigger selected. Okay. Now the last piece that we're going to need is another item, and it is a special waypoint. We're going to look for waypoints, and again, just to touch on, all of these things are documented in a documentation, including these tutorials. They're actually in the documentation that comes with it. So we're going to grab this special under Legends Quest Special Effects, this Mr. SE Man waypoint. Now this is a special special effects waypoint that we need to have. Every time we have one or a bunch of events in a selected in a selected area or in a vicinity of something, we'll want to have one of these guys. And the cool thing is we can have more than one of these guys in an area. Basically what you want to do is make sure that one of these are sitting somewhere nearby where the action is going to occur. So we'll have that guy laid down here. Now this is basically, the way you can consider this is the triggering item that will set a flag, and here is the guy that's going to be managing what's supposed to happen when certain flags are set. Okay, now I know it may sound a little confusing, but we'll try and clear it up now. So the first thing we want to do is decide upon which flags we're going to use for this little event, and the event we want is again to have the flame or fire appear on this brazier. And we have, as we said before, we have 1 to 31 flags that we can use. For this kind of action, we only really need one flag. Basically, a player will walk over this trigger, set a flag, and this thing here, this waypoint, will examine to see if that flag has been set, and if it's set, cause a fire right here. Okay, that's it in a nutshell. So how to do that is we select our trigger, we load up the Legends SE plugin on it, we select File and Set Flags On. Okay, Set Flags On is something that we can use on triggers, on placeables. We can have it when a creature dies, things like that. And in this particular case, we're going to select it on a trigger instance, because that's what we're selecting. We have a trigger down on the ground and it's an instance, so we're selecting trigger instance. And in this screen, what you'll see is what flags you want to turn on. So this basically means which flags in this area do I want to turn on when a player crosses this trigger. Now for this particular example, we only need one. We're just going to select flag 1. Now it doesn't matter which one. We could select flag 29 if we want, or whatever you want. But for this example, we're just going to say flag 1. Okay, so flag 1 will get set to on in this area when the player crosses this trigger. So we'll hit finish, and that's it. So a player comes along, crosses this trigger, flag 1 gets set. Okay, that doesn't mean a whole lot. Nothing will happen. Like flag 1 gets set, whoop-de-doo. Nothing is going to occur because there's nothing configured, there's nothing instructed of the plugin to say do something when flag 1 is turned on. So that's what this part is for. We select our special SE waypoint, and what we do is we configure it to perform things when that flag is on. So we'll select this waypoint and fire up the SE plugin on it, and this time we'll say File Special Effects. And this is where we get to configure all the special effects that'll happen when certain flags are on and off. In this particular case, what we actually want to have happen is a visual effect. We want a visual effect to occur when a certain flag is on. Now the first thing and the most easiest thing to turn on or to actually configure on this is the flag. This section here says check flags on. So this means that whenever these particular flags are on, perform reactions. This section over here, check flags off, means that these flags have to be off in order for this event to occur, or for this reaction to occur. So what we're configuring here is flag 1. So basically this means that when flag 1 is on, I want you to do something. Okay, that something is configured here under reactions. What do we want to have happen when flag 1 is on? So what we do is we select a reaction, and we're going to select a visual effect. Okay, so we select visual effect. Now the visual effect has some other information that we have to give it. We have to tell it what visual effect we want, we have to tell it where we want it to perform, and if we want to have a delay before it actually happens. So in this particular example, all we really want to do is define where the visual effect is going to be and what that visual effect is. Now we've already stated that we want the actual flame fire to appear on that brazier, so what we do is we enter the tag of the placeable object, or the object that we want our visual effect to appear on. So we'll enter brazier 1. Remember, that's the tag that we set on that brazier before we came in here. So that's where we want this visual effect to come on. We don't need a source tag. Source tag, as noted down here, is only used for beam type effects, and we're not doing a beam type effect here. We don't need a delay before performing because we want this to actually happen as soon as the player walks across the trigger, so we don't need any kind of delay here. The visual is what the visual effect actually is, and in this example the visual effect we want to use is VFX DUR fire, this effect here. We want this fire effect to appear on our brazier 1 when flag number 1 is on. The duration for this type of effect we're going to enter as -1. Now this has a special meaning. This duration could be a certain number of seconds that the fire is going to appear. When we set this to -1, that means keep it on there permanently. Okay, the fire is going to appear on our brazier and then it's going to stay there. It's not going to turn off. Now that's okay because there are other ways that we can actually turn this fire off later. We're not going to worry about that right now for this example. All we're concerned about right now is turning that fire on and leaving it on. Okay, now this is the effect that we want to have when flag 1 is on. So we'll add this to our list. And as you can see down here, it gets moved down here. Now, we can optionally have additional reactions happen when flag 1 is on, or even when a different flag is set. We can have this one waypoint manage a whole bunch of different kinds of reactions based on different or duplicate or same flag configurations. So let's say we wanted a monster to spawn as well. We could actually have another flag 1 reaction occur that spawns a monster. We can have another flag 1 that unlocks a chest. We can have a whole bunch of things happen when flag 1 is set, and that will all occur when that player walks across that trigger. Now, we could, like I said, we can have multiple reactions occur when different flags are set. I can have this one waypoint manage a monster spawn if, say, flag 2 is set. So the player walks across the trigger, the fire appears on the brazier, but the monster doesn't spawn because flag 2 is for the monster. So that's what I mean when you can have multiple kinds of reactions on this one waypoint for this this kind of vicinity in this area. You want a bunch of different special effects, but this one we're going to keep simple. We're just going to have the one special effect. It's going to be this brazier 1, and it's going to happen when that flag 1 is on, and finish. That's it. That's all we have to do. We are done. So now I can load this up even in a single player. This has nothing to do with database or anything like that. I can load this up in a single player module, walk across this trigger, and have this brazier catch on fire. Now what's cool is I can even have another brazier right next to this, or even a hallway full of braziers that will all light up if I want to with fire if a player walks across this trigger. I just have multiple reactions, one for each brazier with their different unique tags and things like that. So pretty straightforward stuff. Very, very simple this example is, but this will give you a good foundation on how to get started with the special effects plugin. And we're going to start looking at some more complicated and advanced functions that you can do with this a little later, but I really want to do something very simple with it just to get you started. So what we're going to do is I'm going to demonstrate this real quick in game and show you how it looks and what you can expect when we do it. So we'll see you in game in a second. Okay, so here we are in game, and here's our little brazier that we set up. Now we give it a moment to for the Legend Spawn plugin to spawn everything it needs to do. So typically you don't put special effects, 2 seconds after a player gets into the area. You want them to be in a little further because the special effects need about between 5 and 10 seconds to actually set itself up when a player first enters the area. If the player's already in the area, it's not an issue, but we do want to give it 5-10 seconds to actually set up. So if you're testing this and you log into your game and you run over right away to cross the trigger and nothing happens, that may be something to look out for. It does take a few seconds for the special effects plugin to initialize itself in a new area. when a player first enters. So we've given it plenty of time here. So again, our trigger is right around here somewhere. We expect to see a flame appear on this brazier, a big old flame. So let's do that, and there we go. Across the trigger, we see a big giant flame on this brazier as we had configured. Now, that's kind of cool that that does that, but maybe not exactly what we're looking for. You know, this is a big fire effect and it's engulfing the entire brazier. Maybe not what we're really looking for. Maybe what we really want is a little flame just inside or just on top of the brazier here. And this doesn't really lend itself to doing that. There is a way to do such things, and we're going to look at another feature of the Special Effects plugin that will help us control where these effects are. So we're going to go back into the toolset now and show how we can change this around a little bit so that we can have more what we're really looking for, and that is just a small flame positioned in the correct location on this brazier so that it looks a lot better than this. So I'm going to end this part here and meet you back in the toolset.